Go ahead.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
no. I'm glad that you have raised the question of Gaza because you have just written a really, I think, important article in the Cradle about how 3 BRICS countries, we're talking about Russia, China, and Iran, have been coordinating, navigating, dealing, and wheeling around what has transpired over the last several months, especially Israel's incredibly dangerous aggression in Lebanon, in Iran, which has left the entire collective West kind of holding its breath about what might happen. Could you talk about what exactly Russia and Iran in particular we can begin, and then, of course, bring in China, but you had so much important information for people to understand and know about this burgeoning relationship and how it relates to what Israel is doing. And really now a lot of these recent moves are a response to Israel. That's pretty massive, and I think is not getting enough attention. So Pepe, to you.
I'm sure in the US is not getting attention at all. All of us who follow American mainstream media, of course. First of all, because they don't understand the character of the interlocking strategic partnerships, Russia, China, Iran. They simply don't get it. And even the think tanks don't get it. Well, China, let's say, oversimplifying, of course, China is more or less on the let's say in the backyard in the diplomatic front. They are explicitly saying that they support Palestine. They explicitly acknowledge over the phone Wang and the acting Iranian foreign minister Ali Bagheri Kani, excellent diplomat. They had a phone call a week ago, and basically Wang said, look, whatever you decide in your response to what Israel did in terms of assassinate Haniyeh in Tehran, we got your back. This is enormous, and it's part of their strategic relationship, which is energy. It has military components as well, geopolitically, of course. The fact that Iran wanted to bring China wanted to bring Iran into BRICS for a long time, etc. Iran at the SCO, etc. So let's say this is a Chinese SCO angle of supporting whatever Iran does in West Asia. Russia is much more complex because their strategic partnership militarily is very, very advanced. Basically, Shoigu went to Tehran two weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, basically to accelerate the signing of their overall strategic partnership, including military, ultra high-level military exchanges. Of course, all those Antonov cargo planes landing in Iran a few days ago, carrying a lot of stuff, including practically certain, of course, no smoking gun from either side because this is mega top secret. Certainly, the Murmansk BN jamming those 35-meter high towers capable of jamming everything anywhere at a range of 5,000 kilometers. So the Russians certainly provide Iran with that. So in terms of bolstering Iran's aerial defenses, this is absolutely priceless. And maybe some extra hypersonic Mr. Sarmat and Mr. King Zhao kind of deal that we don't know about, but quite possible. Consider that Iran, they have their own hypersonic missiles, but not as advanced as the Russian missiles. And of course, the fact that Russia continues to buy tons, in fact, tens of thousands of Shahed drones from Iran. So Iran said, okay, we're going to need this, and this for our response. And the Russians said, oh, yeah, of course. Basically, what I heard last year in Moscow when an Iranian delegation was visiting Moscow, and they said, look, the dialogue was fantastic. Basically, we told the Russians, anything you want, just ask, and vice versa. And obviously, for the response, the way this is being organized between Khamenei, the IRGC, and other focuses, nodes of the axis of resistance, they're going to need a Russian military help. Of course, this has to remain secret because Russia has a tremendous problem when it comes to Israel. Focus it on the 1 million plus Russian passport holders or double passport holders who live in Israel. This is a very, very complicated affair because according to the Russian constitution, Russia has to protect them. The fact that many of these are hardcore Zionists and with a genocidal mentality makes the problem even more unsolvable. But Russia has to deal with that as well. So whichever way they choose to help Iran, it has to be extremely carefully calculated, as carefully calculated as the Iranian and acts of resistance response to the assassination of Shukr in Beirut and Haniyeh in Tehran. The Iranians are not in a hurry. I had this conversation these past few days. They are not in a hurry at all. They already said, look, we might not do anything if there is a plausible, serious ceasefire in Gaza. For the moment, it's not credible. There is the possibility of a ceasefire that Hamas already said, no, we don't agree because Netanyahu all the time is blocking some sort of resolution. So this is the only conditions that Iran said that they would not retaliate. So they will retaliate, but it can be, it won't be like we imagine. It would not be in the first few days and weeks, and they could postpone it to September, or even to late September, or even to a few days before the BRICS summit. And anything is possible because the initiative is with Iran, and they choose what they're going to do, how they're going to respond, how deep, how complex, what they can, what kind of installations they want to target. So they have the initiative. And of course, they have this support in the back by Russia and China at different levels, geoeconomic, geopolitical, and diplomatic, is already assured. So this would be basically a BRICS SCO operation. For all practical purposes, Iran will be responding from the point of view of BRICS and SCO to a branch of the forever wars complex is in Israel, and what they are doing genocidally in Gaza. So this is very, very serious. This is a direct clash between the title of my latest book, Eurasia against NATOstan. This is a chapter of Eurasia against NATOstan in practice, in front of us, in front of the whole world to see. So this requires very careful preparation. It will happen, but it will happen on Iran's terms. And then obviously, Danny and all of you, all bets are off, because then there will be the counter response by Israel, and anything is possible, including a nuclear response. Kiev style.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I think those are the stakes, Pepe. And it was so interesting. One of the reasons why your article is so critical is because it goes over the series of events so important. I mean, Sergei Shoigu was in Tehran very quickly. I mean, very quickly, to not only discuss what might happen in terms of Iran's retaliation, but also to discuss military to military partnership, the military relations, sewing up on both sides. What kind of military armaments they're going to be trading essentially with each other. And then, of course, you had this very important meeting, too, that you mentioned with Mr. Abbas, the maybe not so legitimate president of the Palestinian Authority. But nonetheless, you said hours long worth of conversation with Vladimir Putin himself. True. And this comes after the Beijing Declaration, which Russia also helped engineer with China. It was brokered in China, but the Beijing Declaration, both Russia and China have been working so hard with Palestinian leadership around how to develop this kind of new unity government. So talk about how these developments also fit into this larger, as you said, BRICS supported, BRICS aligned support for what Iran and, of course, the rest of the axis of resistance may do from here and into the future.
Well, the Chinese, then they took the assassination of Haniye as a personal affront, as a diplomatic slap on their faces. You cannot do this in Asia and get away with it. All of us who have lived in Asia for decades, we know this on an everyday basis. These are the basic rules of life and interaction across Asia. You cannot have your interlocutor lose face in such a manner or basically insult him in front of the whole world. Only a few days after Haniye was one of the representatives of 14 different Palestinian factions coming to Beijing, invited by the Chinese, signing the Beijing Declaration, with Wang Yi putting the Chinese stamp of approval and support to the declaration. The Israelis kill the main negotiator of a ceasefire in Gaza. Well, I could take days explaining to all of you precedents in the Chinese diplomatic history to what happens to people who try to pull something of that caliber. And if Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan's heirs were still active in Asia, the response would be a pyramid of schools in Israel, at least. But okay, we're not there yet. But this was taken by the Chinese as a personal affront. So that's why they are even more implicated in diplomatic Chinese style, supporting everything concerning Palestine, Palestinian unity, Palestinian efforts, and of course the Iranian response to what Israelis did with the assassination of Kani. And of course, Russia and China, they discussed this among them. And of course, they discussed with the Iranian leadership as well. We can, of course, it's not practically established, but those phone calls between Wang Yi and Lavrov, now they involve the acting Iranian foreign minister, Ali Bagheri. They already appointed Agachi as a new, but it was not confirmed by parliament yet. So for the moment, the top diplomat in Iran, a negotiator of very, very serious stuff, is Bagheri, extremely competent. And I'm sure they are talking, he's talking to Lavrov and Wang Yi, full time. Absolutely full time. Just like Lavrov and Wang Yi talk full time about Southeast Asia, for instance. Late last month, they were here at the summit in Laos, the East Asian Summit. And they had a bilateral that lasted practically half a day discussing Southeast Asia. They discussed West Asia practically on a daily basis as well. But the thing is how to calibrate this response to a point where they're not, the counter response by Israel not only will bleed Iran, but could bleed Russia and China in several ways, further on down the road or immediately. So that's the complete.